Hello, BookTube. Well, as I mentioned, the mail continues to come, and today I got the new London Review of Books. And I thought once again we would take a tiny little walk through. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes long. It doesn't have to be anything like that. I want to just go over some highlights with you and read a couple of things to you. The first piece is enormous. It's by Richard Lloyd Parry, and it's a huge piece about Emperor Akihito of Japan. And it's really good. I really liked it. And I learned a lot about the Emperor that I didn't know. And it's a classic London Review piece because it goes on forever and ever. It goes on for like 6 pages. I don't know if it's the beginning of, if it's a book, if the author is writing a book about the subject and this is a small fragment of that book or whatnot. But then we get to what for a lot of readers of the LRB will be the big highlight of this issue, which is Colin Burrow reviewing The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. This also is a very long review, and I am collecting the reviews, of course. I'm putting the reviews in my copy of The Mirror and the Light, and it's particularly good. It worried me the way it started, because he starts with a whole bunch of factual stuff about how long Wolf Hall was, and what years it covered, how long Bring Up the Bodies was, and what year it covered, how long this book is, and what years it covers. And at first I thought, okay, is this just going to be a dumb reductionist walkthrough of the book without any kind of serious reading involved? And then I remembered something that I know personally, I know it firsthand, which is that there's an enormous strain incumbent on your humble book reviewer when writing about a book when you know that everyone else in the world is going to write about it. In other words, the first 4 gambits that you come up with to start your review, you've got to discard because you know beyond a shadow of a doubt somebody will use them. And it'd be the worst thing in the world. You can't control your deadlines. You can't control your print run. So it'd be the worst thing in the world for somebody to do the, I don't even know, Boris Johnson comparison with Henry VIII in the opening paragraph of their review of The Mirror and the Light. And they're not going to make that comparison throughout the review. They're just going to do it at the beginning. But it'd be the ultimate in embarrassment if you're a UK reviewer for your opening comparison with Boris Johnson to come second. Because it'll look to all the world like you just copied the earlier review that ran. And since you can't tell when your review will run, it's, I can tell you, a source of psychic strain for those of us in the profession to figure out how to structure your review of this book, the foremost fiction release of 2020. I think that if I were in Colin Burrow's position here for the LRB and I had 2,000 words, I think I would find I'd find it much easier to do it then. Because you have a little bit of, the more leisurely space you have for the opening of any kind of review, the better you can make it, the more original, the more open, the more direct to you can make it, because you've got time to develop it. I only had 750 words, so I had to pare away my own opening gambit, and I was wrong in any case, because Colin Burrow goes on to write one of the most intelligent reviews I've read of this book so far, with all sorts of great insights. There's one paragraph here. Darkening memories make it seem as though the unenactable revenge plot against Henry has been driven underground and become a process of internal mental retribution, in which Cromwell's own memories make him come to see himself as the brutal sidekick of a brutal king that historians once believed him to be. Historians should still believe that. That's exactly what he was. I don't know where I think about that once believed him to be business. When he is finally imprisoned in the tower, these memories become ghosts who visit him as he waits to die. He sees Cardinal Wolsey. In the dusk, the cardinal returns as a disturbance in his vision, who complains that his body does not lie in the elaborate Italianate tomb Cromwell was in part responsible for commissioning. As Cromwell enters the bell tower, he sees other people whose death he has directly or indirectly caused. Quote, "There is a figure sitting at the table. Silently, he asks, 'Is it you?' Thomas More rises from his place, crosses the room, and melts into the wall." You can just picture seeing that in the inevitable movie. You can just picture seeing that. As in the earlier volumes, if you glance out the corner of your eye in Mantel's Tudor England, you will always see a ghost. Quite good. Quite good. It's a very good review. And then another one that I want, there's a long piece in here, an angry piece about the BBC. But there's another piece in here that I wanted to mention to you. Oh, yes, here it is. Well, that book, Great State, China and the World by Timothy Brooke. Very happy to see it get a full-page review here by Edward Luttwak. and it's of course brilliant because he's brilliant. So that's great. I'll hold that out and put it in my copy of the book. But there's a long review here by Michael Kulikowski of a book by John Drinkwater called Nero, Emperor and Court, which is a 500-page book from the University of Cambridge that came out in January. I don't think I have seen that book. I don't think it's come out in America yet. So I read the review. The review is fantastic, totally literate in terms of Roman history, which a lot of reviewers think they know until they start to write about it, and then they don't. But it made me want to read the book. I will pull out this review and fold it and put it neatly inside my journal and just wait in the hope that I someday see the book and can put it in there. Because a new biography of Nero, I would certainly want to read that. And then the last thing that I want to tell you about, again, this doesn't have to be 30 minutes long. The last thing I want to tell you about is a short, they have a thing called Shortcuts, a little half-page thing that, this one is by Rupert Beale, who is an official at the Francis Crick Institute. And he writes about coronaviruses, plural, about the earlier coronaviruses that he has known, and this new one. He ends with, it's a very good piece, it's very short, but it's very good, and he ends with something, I received an email from a colleague in infectious diseases. His message was in no way reassuring. He made 3 main points. Let's go through those 3 main points, since we're all living with this. Point number 1, this is not business as usual. This will be different from what anyone living has ever experienced. The closest comparator is the 1918 influenza epidemic. This is not business as usual. Then point number 2, early social distancing is the best weapon we have to combat this virus. Early in all capital letters. And point number 3, humanity will get through this fine, but be prepared for major changes in how we function and behave as a society until either we're through the pandemic or we have mass immunization available. And then Rupert Beale continues, I am writing in haste. This is a fast-moving situation and the numbers are constantly changing. Certainly the ones I have given here will be out of date by the time you read this. What's very clear is that we must comply immediately with whatever measures competent public health authorities urge us to take, even if they seem disproportionate. It's time to increase social distance in all sorts of ways and wash your hands. And that struck me. I mean, it would have struck me anyway because it's pretty stark. But it struck me extra because I think, I don't know how many of you saw on Twitter, there was a clip from, I think, the BBC. Or no, it was an American newspaper. They sent a reporter to the beaches of Florida, where it is spring break. And the beaches are crowded with vacationing students. Laying out on beach blankets, playing beach volleyball, going dipping in the ocean. And a reporter in a full hazmat suit went to ask them questions. They're in their swim trunks. And he talks to these people. He talks to one statuesquely beautiful young man, and then 4 or 5 beautiful young women on a beach blanket, and ask them, don't you think you should be paying more attention to public health officials? Why are you here? Essentially, why are you here when there's a pandemic raging throughout the world? And they were saying, we're young, we're healthy, we're being careful. We put down so much money as a down payment to come here, we couldn't cancel. And one person said, well, we're pretty safe here at the beach. And the reporter was doing his best not to be judgmental so that he would get them to talk to him. But I was watching it and I was thinking, it's not the beach that anybody's concerned with. You're not going to spend your nights at the beach. You're not going to spend your evenings at the beach. You're going to be crowded into bars, sweating and drooling and spitting and kissing all over each other. You're going to fall haphazard into physical unions with total strangers. That's your goal. That's what you want to have happen. Eating and drinking with abandon, without cleaning anything, all surrounded by Palm Beach civilians, by waitstaff. With who knows how many of you vectors of the disease already, and then you go home. One of the kids mentioned he's from Ohio. He's going back to Ohio. He's going back to his small town in Ohio where he says everything is closed down. Everything is closed down to prevent people from becoming disease vectors, and he's going back after having associated in every possible biblical and Linnaean sense with thousands of people. He's going back to that little town in Ohio as an active, glowing white disease vector. And the reporter was trying to tell them, you know, you've seen the figures. You know this isn't the flu. You know this isn't harmless. And so many of these young people were saying variations of, well, yeah, but it only affects the elderly. And all of the comments for that Twitter post, most of the comments for that Twitter post were older people on Twitter saying, for the last year, 2 years with global warming and the national debt crisis and a million other things, we have been told to protect these people's future. And here they are on a beach laughing and joking about killing us for their own pleasure. So screw their future. We'll take care of ourselves. Thank you very much. It was an ugly picture. When you looked underneath the surface, that bright, beautiful beaches, those beaches should be empty. And when you looked under the surface of that, you see some ugly fissures starting to open up. I don't know. So anyway, not to end this, I seem to be, well, I'm part of the times, right? I can't just ignore this thing, especially since I have no idea how many copies of the London Review I'm going to get. I'm going to continue to get. Somebody has to put these in the mail. Somebody has to deliver these to my door. Somebody has to set the type and create the issue. We'll see how long these disruptions last. We'll see how bad they get. But in the meantime, I want that Nero book. Anyway, I'm going to clip out that Nero thing and keep it. I'm going to clip out that review of The Great State and put it in my copy of the book. And of course, I'm going to clip out that copy of The Mirror and the Light and put it in my copy of The Mirror and the Light, which is now on the shelf with the first 2 books. So, and this is just going to collect reviews, as many as appear. I imagine there'll be quite a few. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.